record this session. So yeah, from now on, obviously now it's recorded, so we can go from here. So look, thanks for organising this, Steve. This is really great to get everyone a good overview of the system, and kind of what we're going to go over today is a whole range of different things. So obviously going to give you a complete software background for those who haven't sort of done too much research and detail on the actual company itself. We're going to have a bit of an iCompleat overview just of how the actual process works. We're going to go over some of the key product features and the partner benefits specifically, so for the VARs, and then we're going to go over a bit of a demonstration of the product and the integration into Sage Intacct. So lastly, we'll go through the partner pricing and how that will work. So this is just a bit of a quick overview, and obviously this slide's got a lot on it. So this is basically all our technologies that we've offer. So for obviously anyone that doesn't know, we originally Compleat Software started with a product that we now label as iCompleat, and that is a UK only product. So it's direct sales, procure to pay automation. It's very much for the large SME mid-market solution, and it is a sort of a heavy product. I'd like to say it's got everything you can possibly want with it. It's got, purchasing, invoicing, expenses, contract management, everything in one platform that obviously comes with a price tag. So, we're very prevalent with products like, Microsoft Dynamics AX and GP and some of the larger ones. So that's been running for the last 15 years, and we've been pretty prevalent with that. We've got obviously some big clients there: YMCA, Toyota, Fujitsu. So some quite decent names there. 20,000 end users and 130 total deployments. So about 3 years ago, Phil, my CEO, came up with the idea that essentially the problems that larger businesses are having with their procure to pay solution, so are these kind of mid to small businesses. And the way that we buy software and the way that we take information in now is a lot different to what it used to be. So people want software that's easy to use and they want it to be installed very quickly. So that's where we come up with the idea with the product iCompleat, which is a global channel buy to pay automation software. And originally what we had was just the invoice side of things, and we've built on that to now having today not only the invoice side of things, but also the purchase ordering. It is an extremely easy and deliverable product, multi-currency, multilingual. We've already got 90 sites in 8 different countries, and that's predominantly in the European region. And obviously we've expanded to the Australian and US markets very recently. So that's obviously very exciting for us. And what both of these products take on, or the type of technology they use, is our complete capture technology. And this is the ability to capture the invoice data. It's advanced AI and machine learning. It's a little bit different to OCR. We've got the OCR side of things, but the way that we see it is that most invoices now are delivered as a PDF or a smart document. So something like a Excel document or a Word document. And where our technology sits is that we can automatically extract that information almost at 100% accurate. So that's where our technology differs. We do have the OCR for those paper scan ones, but the way that we see it is that more and more businesses are getting invoices delivered as a sort of smart document, and we can read those pretty much instantly. Now, what we will be able to do is we also will be able to offer this service directly to our partners. So the VARs will also have the opportunity to use this technology, and we can just, I suppose, dump the invoice data wherever they like. It's a little bit different to iCompleat, where it's an end user product, where if they've just got a need for invoice capture, we can use this technology and we can put it into a file that they need. And lastly, our latest piece of technology, which is our Compleat Procure system. I'll start off with saying that at the moment, we are not currently selling this into the Australian market because we're still yet to do the deals with the suppliers. But basically, this is giving the ability for anyone who uses our technologies to have preferred supply pricing on an online platform, and give them analytics about how they're spending and how they can better do that spending. So, for example, in the UK, we've done a deal with Amazon for Business. So that will give them preferential pricing on the platform and have something that will be able to dump their basket into iCompleat and then process it that way. So a very simple, easy way to do that. Obviously, Amazon for Business at the moment isn't in Australia because the B2C side of things only came over here a couple of years ago. We're being told that is going to change and we will have that platform, but we are going to be doing different deals with suppliers in the coming months that are more suited to the Australian market. So that's something else that we can push to the VARs that is much different to the rest of the market at the moment.
James?
Yes?
Sorry, can I just get, just to get clarification. Mm-hmm. So the iCompleat piece, I know that's the one we've been focusing on. Mm-hmm. That in essence includes the capture piece?
Yes.
Okay. And does it mean then the capture piece then can be sold as a decoupled product?
Yeah, so exactly, not to end users, but to partners. So if partners say say if they are obviously using, reselling your Intacct product, but they don't want to say sell the end user product, so that would be the actual iCompleat full product. If they just want to be able to capture invoices and then push them into, say, an Excel file, and then they can manipulate that and put them into Intacct, they can do that as well.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. So you said the VARs, but so could somebody potentially just buy can one of our customers just buy capture if they just wanted the?
Not an end user, no.
Not the end user.
No.
So can I ask a question there, James? Mm-hmm. Is this product only sold through VARs? So for example, if we have a customer that is using Intacct and about to go live, mm-hmm. and they're exploring solutions such as this, could they purchase it on their own or do they have to go through their VAR? Is that the process?
It's the VARs who buy the capture solution. So we don't sell, there's no software cost around that. It's by invoice cost. And I think the minimum is 100,000 invoice credits. And that basically means that the end user will never see, there was no front end to that software. All they're saying is, hey, can you send your, they'll offer it through them and say to their end user, we've now got an invoice capture. It costs this much money, and all you need to do is send your invoice this email and it will process into your system.
All right, I get it. So it's, okay, I get what you mean. So the VAR actually becomes, if you like, the reseller for the...
Correct. Correct. So,
and if they have 2 or 3 clients, then they just... Okay.
That's exactly right. So we've got at the moment a couple of our partners in the UK that are reselling Sun systems, and they are offering this product where they've bought 500,000 credits, and then all their clients, they say, hey, just send us this email and we'll process it for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. So if we're going to go now into the actual iCompleat process, so this is the product that we're going to talk about today. So users with appropriate permissions can create a draft order. So this is the full end-to-end process, but they can start with a draft order, which you could call a requisition, but we'd like to label it as a bit of a draft order. Now, this can either be using free text order templates or using a duplicate previous order. So if they've got a lot of repeat purchases, so something like, office replenishment, then they can just duplicate those, week by week or month by month whenever they do that. Now, once a draft order has been completed, they can submit it for approval. So they can sit it on a very customizable approval chain, and each user has the ability to go into the system, approve it from the web application or on their mobile as well. So they have the ability to sort of quickly have a look at it and approve it on the go. Once that's obviously been final approved, the order will be confirmed and a PDF purchase order document is generated automatically. Now that can automatically send to the supplier, or you can manually send it as well. Some people are not comfortable with the system sending it automatically, but that can happen as well. Now, the purchase order documents are customizable as part of the system setup, and so customers can have their own colors and logos and things like that. So it obviously looks like it's coming from them as we want. Now, the PDF, obviously, the order generated is sent off. After that, the supplier is obviously going to send in the purchase invoice through, in a number of different formats, but most of the time it's going to be via email, and it's going to be processed accordingly through our Compleat Capture portal, which is our invoicing technology. Now, once it's processed, the purchase or invoice documents and data will be available to view and process within the system. So it'll be delivered into iCompleat. They will be able to see all the information that we have captured off that invoice, including the original document. So using all that information, including the purchase order number and the values, the system will carry out a two-way match with open orders. So base this on supplier, the order number, the value of the invoices, and invoices will be flagged with a status for the user to view. So this is including it being matched, part matched, overmatched, undermatched. There's a whole range of different options. So they're always going to have visibility as that as well. So if it isn't completely matched, like it was part matched or overmatched, they'll be able to query that just from that screen. The invoice again will then go through another workflow. So we can do this in two different ways because there is two different trains of thought. Some businesses say if it's already been approved as an order, it doesn't need to be approved again as an invoice. So it can just be, directly posted into Sage. However, the other side of things where some businesses are saying, no, it needs to go on one more approval process to see if the values are correct, to see if they actually receive the goods. We're on a whole range of things. So it can go on another approval process if you require. So the other option is as well, if a business doesn't want to use the ordering side of things, is that we can process direct invoices and go through an approval process. So you don't have to use the purchase order side of things to be able to use the system. You can use it from sort of both sides of things. After that, it's obviously being very, very tightly integrated into Sage. And it's a two-way integration. So we're obviously pulling information into our system and obviously pushing it into yours. So we will bring things in like all the codes, all the supplier codes, all that kind of information. And then we're obviously pushing the invoice data as well. So it is a very, two-way integration. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, all makes sense. That's good.
Fantastic. So now we're just going to go over the sort of the key product features. So obviously ordering. Most businesses, depending on their side, will have some kind of ordering process. Even if it's as simple as one of their staff calling the finance department saying, I need this, we do that. They've all got some kind of ordering process. So all we're trying to do is formalize it and control it. We're going to create orders to gain visibility. So everyone now is going to have full visibility over the company spend, which is already a great benefit. The invoice capture and matching side of things, it's really obviously at the tip of the tongue of most businesses now, and it really is a buzzword in the industry, is capturing my invoices. Everyone at the moment is now either moving to it or already has some kind of capture piece of technology. Where we differ is that we capture header and every single line, and then you have the ability to default that coding and the invoice matching by line as well. Lastly, the dynamic approval workflow. So again, a lot of the products at the smaller end of the market don't have an approval workflow, and for businesses that are growing and that are a little bit bigger than kind of your 1- and 2-man type businesses, they need some kind of approval process. So every order and invoice can go through a multi-level simultaneous approval process, and they are extremely flexible, and we'll touch on that in the demonstration. You can set rules around them, and they're very, very easy to set up.
James, I've got a question on the invoice capture and matching.
Yep.
So I take it that you can do two things. One, you can start to do default coding in terms of the mapping between, let's say, a supplier with a default GLA code, like stationary expenses example.
Yep.
Does it also do machine learning? So not direct mapping from a administrative user, but does the system actually read the information and be able to kind of suggest what that coding would be?
Yeah, so not at this stage, but it's being developed at the moment in the background. Basically what we're doing is we're going through a very rigorous testing of this type of technology. So we've kind of already developed the actual product, but we're going through a lot of testing to make sure that the suggestions that it's giving are correct.
Sure.
But this will be something that is in our development ring, and we are going to do. So we'll say things like, this looks like it needs to be coded to X, and all you need to do is press OK, and then forevermore that will be coded to the way it is, so it learns from that.
Yeah. Can you, further to that then, can you then split that across different departments or locations, like basically do a form of allocations? By
line?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can obviously code one line to, a different allocation. If you wanted to split one line up, there is a way to do it. At the moment, it's a little bit manual. You have to kind of add another line and split up the costs. But again, this is something that we are, working on developing, is being able to say split up a line percentage-wise, into different codes. Okay, fantastic. And I've got one more here. So obviously the accounting system integration, we're very good at it. We've obviously just completed the Sage Intacct integration. The one in the US is working perfectly, and we just needed to do obviously a few different things to make sure the Australian one was good to go, and it'll be in our live system next week. So we're all very excited for that, obviously. So now I'm just going to touch very quickly on iCompleat for partners and how that works from a system point of view. So obviously what we just explained there is what the end user is going to, see and then do. Now, for what our partners are currently doing in the UK and US is that they are essentially like a software reseller. And a partner can have as many clients as they like and obviously integrate them into Sage. And there's a few different benefits around doing this. So obviously they can co-brand the product. So it'll obviously have our logo, in the bottom left corner, but the majority of the logos and things like that will be the VAR logo and the splash color and things like that. So it can kind of, I suppose, color and make it look like it's their own product or they're partnered with us. They've also got a partner portal with client management, so they can see how many invoices they're processing. They can go in and out and support them as they need. They've also got the ability to have an embedded demonstration for every single salesperson within one of those VARs. So if they want to go to a client and demo the product, we've got a inbuilt invoice generation with demonstration scenarios and things like that, so to help them along the way. And obviously they're going to have free internal use of iCompleat, which is great. For the clients, they're going to be able to offer them now purchase automation and invoice matching, approval workflow as we've gone through, and integration and things like that. So it really is the product itself is really built for partners to resell the product. Now, that's not to say that that's the only option, because you can have a referral partnership, but we believe that the best value and the way that they will resell the product is going to be through this sort of reseller program.
So James, really like the iCompleat for partners, because it looks like you're giving them the ability to be self-sufficient from a demo perspective. Mm-hmm. Just at this stage, our partners are still relatively new. So any kind of demos, at least for the majority of partners, they're getting support from both Justice and myself.
Sure.
So we would, I guess implied in that, we would like to get our hands on, at least one of those sites so that we can actually demo that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm more than happy to be involved the same way you are with your VARs in terms of helping them demonstration to their clients at the early stages, and then hopefully probably the same way that you are, making them more self-sufficient as time goes on.
Yeah. And I think initially with the first few, it would be good if someone from iCompleat do the demo.
Yep.
For the first few engagements.
Yeah, and completely understand that. That's absolutely no problem at all. And we understand obviously this early stage, it's about getting them to be, successful and self-sufficient rather, and we can go from there.
But I reckon they'll appreciate that. That's really good. I wasn't expecting it.
No, that's great. I think as we spoke about, James, and I guess Caroline can sort of jump in there. Sorry, just give me some.
It's all right.
No, sorry, I just got a call coming in. I just wanted to. Yeah. As we spoke about, I think it's key, that we kind of spoon feed just to get these first couple through, ensure success, and have those reference points and so forth. So I think there's a couple things that I picked up on this in how we can engage, which is great. So you're going to go through obviously pricing and everything. Mm-hmm. Question I have for you, I know we sort of slightly touched on it before, but if a client doesn't need the purchasing automation, mm-hmm. and just wants to do the ingestion and matching part, bringing through, and the work, doesn't necessarily need the workflow, they want to use Intacct to do that part. Is that something that you've worked with clients on? Is that a component? So
this is bringing purchase orders that you've raised in Intacct into our system?
Yeah.
Unfortunately not. It is something that we is available in iCompleat in our other platform, and it's something that we want to do in iCompleat. It's just very complex and it makes the product much more difficult to implement. That's not to say that we won't do it. I don't know exactly when that's going to be available. I know it's something that we want to do. I just haven't had an update lately of when that might be available.
Okay.
But fine. I can actually get that information because I had someone else ask me about this the other day. So.
Okay, just looking at the different options of where clients are at and what they're prepared, where they're prepared to do that lifting at one end or the other, and so that's cool. Okay,
fantastic. All right, so let's now go into a bit of a demonstration. Let me refresh this because this is probably going to kick me out. So what I'm going to log into at the moment is a partner that I've set up. So this would be someone who would be reselling the product. Now, what I'll do to start with is I'll just do a bit of a demonstration quickly on the end user side of things, and we'll touch on the partner features because obviously that's going to be more of a second thing for our relationship. So if I go into, let's go now into my AP user. So basically what you're seeing on the screen here is the main screen of iCompleat. And I've obviously got some options here, and depending on what type of user you are is what options you'll see. And in a second, we'll touch on the users and I'll show you what I mean by that. But each user has a type of user and they'll be able to see what they need to see. Below that, obviously all the options, I've got my e-invoicing email address. So this is the email address that's associated with this particular user's account. Now, that email was on the screen there is very complex, but that's just because it's on a demo site and all that kind of thing. But basically all it will be is their business name at compleat-einvoicing.com. So the easiest and quickest way for us to get those invoices in is to just give that email address directly to their suppliers. That way they can send the invoices in, we'll process them, and they can go from there. Now, say they send a document that isn't an invoice. Maybe it's a statement or it's a chasing, like a dunning notice. They're trying to actually chase. If we recognize something that's not an invoice, we will automatically forward it onto an email address of their choice. So they're not losing any documents by giving the email address directly to their suppliers. We're going to filter out the invoices and send them on anything that's not. And that's the easiest and quickest way. You can also set an automatic forward motion from, one of their internal ones. It might be accounts@theirbusinessname.com. They can also do that if they don't feel comfortable with that, and it will process in the same way. For any paper invoices that they still might be processing, they can scan them in, send them to that email address, and it will process. The difference is that if we see a supplier that's been sent in, via email, once we onboard that supplier and we make sure that it's correct 3 times, we validate it, it's then processed pretty much automatically. So from sending in to actually in the system, it's like 30 seconds. Whereas the OCR from the paper invoices can take anywhere between sort of 4 and 10 hours, really depending on how busy our team is, because they might need, usually what will happen is there's a big backlog of these ones that need to be pushed through the OCR. And if there's any kind of, if there's a coffee stain on it or there's a rip or it hasn't been done straight, then there's someone in our team in the UK that has to actually rectify that. So I suppose the story of that is that making sure that anyone who's using the system is processing as many kind of smart documents as possible, because they're going to be able to process a lot quicker. Now, to the top right of the screen, I've got the company. So the system itself is fully multi-entity. So if a business has 5 different entities, there's no additional cost for per entity. They can set them up and they can obviously switch in between them. So we're making sure that there is no additional cost and also the ability to switch in between. And each person will have the ability to have access to them depending on how they want to set it up.
Now, okay, in terms of the multi-entity, does each entity have a different email address? Like how does it know?
Yes, so each entity will have its own email address.
Yeah, okay.
So let's quickly touch on some configuration options before we get stuck into an example. And the first one thing I want to touch on is the manage users option. So this is where your clients would go and set up each user, as you can see here on this table, giving me a nice snapshot of each user. So their email address, their name, the role they hold within an organization, and what type of permissions they have. So if I go ahead and let's click on Rory, who's my head of IT, he's going to break down the information about this user. So on the left-hand side, their name, email, role. We've also got this function called nominee. So this is used to redirect approvals to an alternative person if this person is away. If they're on holiday, if they're off sick, The user themselves can set them as their nominee, or the admin user can come in here and actually set the person that they need to be directed to. So no orders or invoices being stuck within the process. We also have the ability to set a language. Now, the language dictates the locale. So what that means is if I've obviously got it here as United Kingdom, but if I change it to Australia, that will change like all the language to GST, to dollars, to things like that. So if you've got a business that, is obviously at the moment we've got Australia and United States, but we've got a few others that are coming. So New Zealand, Hong Kong, things like that. Then they also have the ability to set that at a user level. So they'll see, their locale information when they log in. Also got the ability to set a preferred delivery site. So that means that when they raise an order, they'll automatically say, send to this particular address. So that they can change that as well. The right-hand side is what permissions they have. So as you can see here, they've got access to this particular company. And if this was a multi-company entity, I would be able to see multi-companies and set the access depending on which companies they need to see. Below that, I've got what type of user they are. So I can see here that Rory here is an approver, and he can also create orders. That means he's just, obviously a head of department. He can approve or invoices and orders, but he can also create orders. I've also got the ability to set him as an administrator and then an AP operator. So an AP operator user is someone who will be in finance, will be processing invoices. Global permissions is just sort of another layer of permissions. We won't touch on those today. And then lastly, we've got what reports can they see? And do they have universal access to reports or the data that goes through the reports? So what this will mean is, can they see the information in their reports that is the total of the organisation, or just the invoices and orders they've approved and denied? So for a head of department, he's probably only wanting to go see his reports filled with, his department. But maybe for someone like a managing director or a finance director, they want to see an overarching view of all departments. They want to see all their reports being populated. And we'll touch on obviously what they look like in a second. Last thing in configuration I want to touch on, which is probably the biggest selling point of our product, is the Manage Workflow tab. And this is where we're going to go ahead and set up the approval chains for those invoices and orders. Now, if we touch on today the IT department, so same as before, each line on that table is an approval chain. It's going to break down the steps that this particular approval chain take. On the top here, obviously the name and the abbreviated name, which is going to show up at the bottom of the document to choose it. I can see here there are two positions for approval. First one, I've just got Rory in here. If I click on that, it's obviously going to expand this position. Now, the reason I've done this is because maybe in IT, there might be two people that could approve this invoice. There might be sort of two department heads. If I click on this, it'll give all my users here. And let's say click on Claire, click on this add button. What this has now done has turned this into an approval group, meaning it's going to go to both of these users with only one of them needing to approve it to send it on to the next position. But this is very handy, if businesses have got multiple people within areas of the business that could approve an invoice. And once it's been approved, it'll just disappear from the other people's inbox. So instead of going through some ridiculous approval chain, trying to find the right person, you can put people into groups and making sure the right people see the right information. I've got a second position. I've got Neil in here, who's my CEO. However, I don't want Neil to see every single invoice order that goes through this workflow, but I do want him to see ones of high value. So what I've done is I've set a criteria and said, I only want him to see an invoice or order that's over a net value of $1,000. Now we can set a whole range of different conditions or criteria around this. So I can click on this add button and it will say, give me every option about us, reading an invoice, and we can set things. So let's say, for example, I'll say, if the item, let's say location, which is one of my analysis fields, is equal to, and these are the two ones that have been exported out of my finance system, is equal to Melbourne, go to this person. So if, for example, there might be a particular person that's, head of an office or something like that, you can actually set that criteria, say only send to him if it's been coded to this particular area. So you can see here how you can really start to manipulate and automate the process by setting these kind of criteria in. So you don't have to have lots of different approval chains and lots of different steps. If you set the right criteria, Some people that we've got in the UK only have like 2 different workflows because they've got lots of criteria around where the invoice or what it could go. Now, they're also very flexible, these. So maybe Neil, I'm wanting to see it first instead of second if it's over 1,000 or it's got that criteria. I can have as many different steps as I like, and we can also have simultaneous approvals. So that might be a good example before is when I set that criteria and coding. There was 2 different codes, Sydney and Melbourne. I could actually split an invoice to say, if half the lines are coded to Melbourne and half of them are coded to Sydney, split the invoice up so they can approve their separate lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's pretty intuitive. It's good.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work on this initially. When we did this, we built the system kind of first with this and then built everything around it. And this really is the most powerful part of our system. And I can tell you right now that the people that have done great things with the system have had this really automated. They've set lots of different criteria around it to make sure that it goes to the right area automatically.
So at this level, I mean, I'll be interested to see, when you obviously ingest the invoice through and how you allocate it, especially around things potentially like projects and so forth. But this area here, though, would you be just picking up or trying to replicate the dimensions, some of the dimension aspects in Intacct?
We can't do that, unfortunately. So if you've got some kind of settings within Intacct you're talking about like mirroring those in Intacct?
Dimensions, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately not. I don't know. I think we've been asked about this before through another system that we integrate with Accounts IQ, and unfortunately we just can't get that information. That might be something separate with Sage Intacct, but I can ask about that.
It's okay though, right? Because this is just a workflow approval process. So as long as you configure the approval process in iCompleat, as long as the transactions have the dimensions on there, correct. So I think so. Like the graphical interface that you have here from a workflow, it's I don't know whether you've seen the marketing cloud stuff in Salesforce in terms of how it spins off. It looks very similar to that.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make this easy as possible to set up because the majority of people that set, or maybe we'll help them set up the first few workflows, but then obviously as time goes, they'll set their own, have to come in and set their own workflows up. They're not tech people; they're usually finance people, so they're not going to have the ability to map complex type tech scripts and things like that. So we wanted to make it really graphical and really easy to set up.
Yeah, good.
Excellent. So let's now get into an example of an invoice, and we'll touch on orders in a second. But I wanted to obviously just start on invoices because that's the kind of the main part of the system, and orders are more of an add-on here at the moment. So I've clicked on my Manage Invoices tab, and before we get stuck into an example of one of the invoices that I sent in, I just want to touch on the actual tabs that you're seeing. So the Unprocessed tab is an AP Operator tab, and this is for someone in the finance team, and this is where invoices are going to deliver for the first time after they've been processed through that email. So all the data is being captured, they're sitting here ready to be processed. The Submitted tab is an AP Operator tab being used to see exactly where each invoice is within the approval chain. So this is giving them full visibility to see exactly where all the invoices are. And from here, they can do things like nudge the user to hurry up and approve it, or they can recall it. So if it's taking too long, if they're away, they can quickly recall it and send it on another approval chain, or even bypass everything and say, look, we just need to get this transaction into the finance system. They can bypass it all and send it into the finance system. The awaiting approval are invoices that require this particular user's approval. So at the moment, I've got nothing to approve for this user. And obviously, I've got the approved and denied tab, which we will kind of touch more on in a second.
Hey, James, just a question while you're hovering on GST.
Sure.
So you've got the actual codes in the background, or can we surface that as a column as well?
We basically just replicate the connection to Sage Intacct. So we just bring all the GST codes that are in Intacct.
Got it. Right. Okay. So how does it know which? Oh, it only picks the GST amount, right? Obviously off the actual scan.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it will have a suggested code. So we'll touch on that in a second. When it basically reads, so say if there is zero rated, or $0 on the GST line, it will then say, hey, it's, exempt. Well, that's the code. Is this the correct code? Yes, it is. No problem at all. Or you can actually change it manually from there as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
We've also got the ability to search and find any of them. So I've got this little button here and actually search and find any invoices or credit notes from this particular screen. So fantastic if they're trying to find something. And again, we'll touch on sort of the audit side of things as well later on. We go back now into the process trade. Let's get stuck into an example. So if we go into, let's say, Techo Drive Computers, my top one there. Now, this has no PO match, which basically means that this is a direct invoice. There is no PO in our system, or hasn't been, there's no PO on the invoice, which means that it wasn't actually raised. So again, I'm just doing things from an invoice side of things. It's giving me a nice snapshot of it. So the date it was received, the invoice date, when the payment's due. So we bring the supplier terms from Sage Intacct into iCompleat. Got the sort of invoice number, which is basically the reference number in our system. If it has a purchase number, it'll view that there as well. Who the supplier is, the invoice number from the supplier, and obviously the total of the invoice. Now, if I click on the invoice itself, it's going to break down what we've extracted. So on the top left here, it's just giving me the invoice date, supplier, and the total of the invoice. It's also got this pop-up which is saying that the invoice requires some kind of validation before you can send it off for approval. So I need to, map suppliers, I need to code the GST, I need to code the account code and things like that. It's also extracted the bank details off the invoice and it's trying to match them with the ones that are stored inside Sage. So this is a really fantastic piece of functionality that a lot of our clients in the UK and US love, which is basically doing like a fraud validation check. At the moment, there are I haven't got any bank details stored inside Sage, so it's just blank. Now, if I did have it, it would turn into like a green piggy bank, which I've got one back here quickly. As you can see here, a green piggy bank is saying that they're valid. We match the ones that are on the invoice, we've matched them with the ones that are inside Sage. If they were incorrect, so if we read two different ones, it would say they're invalid and it would be a red piggy bank. And you can set a few different settings to say, one, I can't actually process that without changing it. Or B, it'll set up like a warning thing. But the majority of times that this happens is just that the supplier has changed their bank details. But at least that gives you a prompt to call them and say, hey, is this correct? We have found out over the years that the fraud within a business is extremely common, and people like within finance teams processing their own personal invoices with their own details on it is very common. So this kind of stops that. Below that, it's extracted 4 lines off my invoice. So it's giving me the item code, the description, and the unit cost of every single line. And the reason why it's in this kind of pink color is because it's requiring some kind of validation, some kind of review before I can send it off for approval. It's asking me that for my particular demo company, that I need to enter an account code, a tax code or GST code, and a location, which is the analysis code that I use. So forgive me, I don't know Intacct that well. I mean, how many different analysis codes can you set up within the system?
Dimensions.
Yes.
I think, depending on what you're licensed for, but call it 10.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's somewhat unlimited, right? But yeah, I mean, most people would probably.
The ones that are out of the box, like 10, depending on what you purchase.
Okay, and is that 10 different like categories? So you might have like location, project, etc.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Fantastic. So whatever ones that you set up, we'll just drag in. So they'll say, hey, when you connect, which I'll show you in a second how the connection works, they'll say, hey, we can see here that you've got 4 different dimensions. Do you want us to cache that information? Click on yes. And that basically means then that every time an invoice comes in, they need to set those codes to come in.
So that would be, I would assume then, based on that, if we're using this to then allocate this particular invoice to a project,
yep,
that would be surfaced there. They can just do the mapping at that point.
Correct. Yeah.
So
and obvious
the logic we have around there just to clean up some of the codes and so forth, but we can go into detail. Mate, I'm just a little bit concerned at the time.
Yes.
15 sort of minutes left on the clock. So I don't know, and I certainly want Carleen, I'm cognizant that we cover off some of these commercials because we have some live opportunities at the moment.
Okay.
So do you want to show us quickly that video of the mapping?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then maybe we can then sort of break into a bit more of the commercials.
Yeah, that'd be, no worries at all. And look, if you want to see any more of the actual system, we've got lots of recordings. So if any of you guys want to actually go in and see more of the system,
okay. We could certainly have another session that's more technical to dive into a bit more of that.
No worries at all.
James, what we've seen so far.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great news. Okay, so look, this is just the video, and this is just my tech head of tech just doing this really quickly. It's not going to have sound, so I'm just going to talk over it. Can you see that obviously there, just playing?
Yep, all good.
Cool. So obviously we're coming into the administration options, and you're going to go into company management. And obviously you've got this button on the left-hand side here, connections. And basically what you're saying is I need to connect a new finance system. Now, after we click connect, it's going to give you obviously a few different options. So you can go in and click on Intacct. Now, at the moment, I got explained to this the other day again because I've only just gotten my Sage Intacct test system, so I haven't added a massive look at it. But he was telling me that each particular Sage one will have a company ID. You need to create a web service user, and then obviously put that web server ID and password in. From there, we obviously put in all that information. So the company name, the web service user ID, and the password. From there, you're going to click this button, test connection. This is going to give you a validation saying, yep, we've actually connected to it, or we know where it is. Click on this connect button, and what it's going to do, it's going to bring up the company. So once we connect to that particular Sage installation, it's going to say, right, we need to find a company, because you might have multi-companies within that installation. So it's obviously going to bring up here. So we found the following companies. So there's obviously a few different options in terms of the companies. From here, obviously, going back into Intacct, we obviously can see that there's the companies that I've got active. Yep, I want to choose the Australian one. Click on connect. What that's now going to do, it's going to connect to the system. And this is what I mentioned before. Obviously brought up and saying, hey, which of these features do you use in Sage Intacct for this particular company? So yep, I want to add by line the account code, the department, project, tax code, and the location. If there were more, it would just show up as more. From here, obviously press on save. I can see here now that the connection is being cached. So that's basically saying that that is active now. There's like a warning button up here before. The warning button has now disappeared, so we have an active connection. Now, from here, he's just going through a little bit more, but if I just jump to the video, hopefully he's going to bring it back here. Sorry about this. Okay, so after it's been posted, this is what it's going to look like in terms of when we post it. So obviously in this part of the system, as you can see there is the actual posting from an invoice to Sage Intacct. It's bringing all the information that we've extracted. It's also got an attachment, so it's bringing over the attachment and every single line with all the codes that have been coded in iCompleat. I think from here he's just going to do another example, so I won't touch on that. So as you can see there, that's extremely easy, and obviously that's very quick. And once I get the system, my own live version, I can give you more of a live demonstration. But it literally is a click of a button. Here's what's my password and login. What company do you want to connect? Press on connect. What codes do I want to use? Press on that, and it's done.
Right. And I think when we get to that stage, next week or whatever, then we can, spin that up and the guys can then do a little bit more testing and get familiar with it. That's awesome. So you reckon next week, eh?
I got told next week. So basically we do a bi-weekly sprint update. And at the moment, or last week it went into QA, which means hopefully if all the testing goes well, which I've been told it is, that next Thursday it will go live.
Okay, cool. So we can then, reconvene on that one. All right. Why don't we move on? Again, just cognizant of the time. So if you could just give us an insight as to...
Yep. So we'll just jump to that part quickly.
That's been good, mate.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's good. I mean, as I said, we're very excited about this. So look, quick partner pricing overview and the pricing in general. So iCompleat buy price is split into two different sections. They're both required. A monthly or annual subscription based on the number of users. And two, the invoice transaction credits for processing the actual invoice data. And they can be bought in bundles, which we'll show in a second. Now, iCompleat subscription will be based on the finance system they use. So in your case, it's just going to be category C, which is the Sage Intacct. The way that we price that is because obviously, depending on what market we're in, the pricing changes. And the buy price for a partner, if they want to become a reseller, is, as you can see, so Bonze, 30% discount on RRP, 35, 40, 45%. And then obviously partners can set their own retail price, because we don't advertise the price online anymore. So the pricing itself, this is the buy price, or the RRP. So as you can see here, the Sage Intacct or category C pricing is based on this. You've got annual and monthly options, so you get a 10% discount if you buy annually. 5 users, 10 users, 20 users, and obviously goes all the way to 100, and we can do bigger deals than 100. Because they can buy it monthly, and then obviously you've got your per user cost. So as you can see there, the more users, the cheaper the per user cost gets. What we find is most companies buy annually, and the reason for that is because of this transaction credit bundle situation. So transaction credit bundles don't expire for 3 years. So obviously the more units or the higher transaction credits you buy, the cheaper per invoice cost gets. So as you can see here, for 10,000 credits, it gets down to 37 cents, apart from 75 cents. So you're saving quite a bit on the per invoice cost. Now, 1 credit equals 1 invoice, no matter how many pages or lines.
So what's been your experience? I guess, Carleen can jump in here and give some sort of, indication from expectations in the field and number of, invoices and that thing. But where do people fit into that as far as users? Like a typical site would have how many users? Is it mainly to the back office finance users, or do you have process users? Like, what's been the experience?
So basically, so basically it really differs, and that's a really soft answer, but it does differ depending on the type of business. So we've got businesses right now in the UK that have 450 users, but only process 2,000 invoices a year, because then their process is around purchasing. They need a lot more purchasing control and things like that. But then we've got other businesses that are processing like 20,000 invoices a month, but only have 10 users. So it really depends on what type of business it is. Now, it really differs. If there's a particular business that only wants invoice processing and they don't really need that much approval, they only need just the director to approve it, they may only have 5 users, 3 processing users and an approver, but they need to buy 40,000 invoice credits.
Okay. So if you've got project managers out there, or they're managing whatever, then typically they'd be using the procure to pay.
Correct.
And then matching that and do that sort of 3-way matching or whatever.
Yeah, correct. And that's why we split up the pricing, because the pricing was 5 users get this many invoice credits, but what we found, there was no correlation. Some users have low users but high invoice credits, and the other way around. So that's why this pricing model for us has really worked, because they can be flexible and they get the best per user type of user and invoice cost.
Okay.
James, can I give you a scenario of a really burning customer that we have that's about to go live on Intacct, and we just don't have a solution to solve for it? And I think that your solution could be it, but just concerned about the various different structure we've spoken about. They're using a solution at the moment called Easy Bills. They used Xero. Easy Bills is a solution they use that plugs into Xero. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Yep. And they purchased that because they didn't need a bells and whistles solution. They've got a high volume of invoices that they need to get into the system, and it obviously integrated to Xero out of the box. They have selected Intacct due to their business growth, primarily on the multi-entity piece. And their invoices will continue to steadily grow a little bit. They're in the childcare space. They have lots of various different entities. The concern that they have is nothing is wrong with Easy Bills, but it doesn't integrate to Intacct. So we're obviously trying to solve for that solution. They have 2 users, so obviously they'd be going on the 5 user pack if that's the minimum, because there's 2 people in finance that essentially operate in this. It's a relatively lean finance team. However, their invoices are currently at about 8,000 a year, and they expect that to grow probably to 10 to 12,000. Now, with Easy Bills, they pay in a bulk of invoices, if you will. So it's basically like less than 250, less than 1,000, and then there's blocks, I think, of 2,500, right? Yeah. So all up annually, they pay like 1,500 or 2,000 for Easy Bills. So it's absolute cheap as chips. And as I say, it doesn't do really a whole lot for them, but they don't necessarily need that. Now, if a solution was to come in and upsell them on all of the value that can be seen with more functionality, absolutely great. But they are obviously concerned that they've gone from 0 to Intacct, and now their next solution to solve for this problem will obviously be more expensive. To give you some context, they're not a massive customer from a dollar value perspective. They were one of the first customers we signed, and from memory, I think they pay about $10,000 for Intacct annually, maybe slightly less. And I can be really transparent as we go into partnership. So my question for you is, roughly speaking, and obviously we're a channel-led business, so technically it was sold by a partner who obviously has done the implementation. However, we are in direct contact with this customer trying to solve for this problem with them. The partner is not driving this. So my question for you is, on that scenario, based on the figures I've given you, what could be, and sorry if I'm not necessarily following from pricing structure, from the credit piece, would they be looking at purchasing, as an example, the 10,000 units at a value of 3,500 or 3,700 per year, plus the 1,980, so essentially they'd be up for about 5,700 a year. Is that kind of RRP what they would be paying?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And everything is sold through the partner, implemented through the partner, serviced and supported by the partner?
It can be. So we sell direct, but our preference would be through a partner. So if VAR wanted to become a partner, then they can have all those benefits. And as I said, we will help them sell the product through them now.
I think long term, some partners will definitely avail of that. I think in this particular instance, given the time frame and stuff, the customer would probably prefer to go direct with iCompleat.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay, perfect.
This is the retail pricing that we sell direct to. So, and this is our recommended RRP as well for partners once they resell that product as well.
Okay, perfect. I'll take the conversation offline with you specifically about this customer. I'll loop back with the team. But yeah, just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Thank you.
So how do you manage the partner margin? Is that if they take it, that's that goal?
Yeah, so that is a little bit, so that's just obviously the own, but basically if we look at the partner program, and that's a scenario where we charge the partner and they on charge for that service.
Right.
So they wouldn't be buying the product through us, they'd be buying it through their partner. So this is a direct client. So this is an example to say, right, these are the different partnership levels. This is the annual partnership fee. So everyone can start on referral. If they don't want to pay a partnership fee, they won't have a target, they get 20% margin. But as you can see here, they can get quite a large margin. That obviously they have a target and they obviously have to buy into that partnership with us. So for example, this is an example of a gold partner that'll be 40%, and this is how the cost change. So as we were saying before, the 5-user package was almost 2,000. Their buy price has gone down now to 1,188. So to give you a bit of an example, to make obviously not so much information on the screen here, is that as an example, let's say we've got a customer has got 10 users and they process 10,000 invoices a year. This is the RRP on the system, so almost just over $7,000 for the year. As a gold partner, that would be their buy price. So they're making their profit margin on that deal as a partner is almost $3,000.
Okay, so there is a fast track just through the referral.
Yep.
Right, but that would be at the retail. Okay, and then I guess it comes down to us having offline discussions around. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, we've got partners at the moment. So I think in the US, what they did is they did an early adopter program, which means that they went straight to the gold pricing and they didn't have to have that buy-in price, but they went straight into that 40%. I've got to talk to my CEO about if that's going to be offered in Australia, but I would be shocked if it wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, that might help us to get us across the line initially. Whether or not we somehow sort of contra the deal, I don't know. We'll work that through.
Yep.
But, because I think it's going to be, there's going to be a ramping up period, right? And I think part of that is paying to get into the market, is just a little bit to get those referral points and make sure we ensure success.
Okay.
We can have that discussion offline.
Yeah, I think that'd be good because I think I've got the same view as well. I mean, this information works and has worked well in the UK and working quite well in the US, but obviously the US market is quite saturated with resellers, so they're all trying to fight over each other.
What happens from a support perspective then? If there's an issue, are you the first line of support, or do they go through the partner to triage?
Go through the partner. So triage, so go through the partner, and if the partner doesn't know, then they can obviously ask us.
Is that in all the levels?
Not the referral. The referral one, that's just where the support.
Okay, but even in bronze, that they're required to do the first level of support.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, a couple people have to go, so I'll let.
No, that's all right. Look, I mean, that was really about it in terms of the actual commercial. I mean, look, I can understand that the pricing can be a little complex, and we can obviously take that offline and discuss a little bit more about how that works and how it's going to work, but potentially with the ones that we're talking about, because it may, what we're showing here is very easy for some of the partners, I think, but you may say that's not going to work with the VARs, and we can obviously discuss that.
Is there any variance then with the second option of just the ingestion, the capture bit?
Yes, there is, but I'm going to have to chat with my tech team. So at the moment, the way that capture works with the UK partners is that we kind of essentially create a database through our iCompleat platform, and then it gets processed through the portal the same way it does through iCompleat, and then we deliver it through our iCompleat platform as a file. And then from there, it gets, that's their job, the partner's job, to manipulate it and put it into whatever finance system they needed to put it in.
Okay.
All we're doing is saying, hey, this is the price for this many transactions. I think the minimum is 100,000 transactions to use anything, but we don't deal with the tech side of things.
Sure. It'd be interesting to know what that is. I don't know. We've got some larger partners, and I don't know what their investment would be. They would be keen to invest, but yeah, that's something we can look at. Normally, we don't have a lot of resale partners here in Australia. I think that they do that in the US.
Yeah.
It's not as common here, but a few of ours, like 4-point, sell solutions and that sort of thing. So.
Okay, great. So basically, in terms of your partnerships though with those, are you giving them some kind of margin?
Well, you're looking at it right there, right? So for these ISV components, they get the full, the full component, right? We don't get involved. There's no referral fee. There's no percentage that we take out of that.
Yep.
It's purely just more of a commercial, more of a relationship. In the US, they do have a different model. So there's a referral program. There's you take the 20%, for example, blah, blah, or whatever. But no, here it's completely, flatline. The partners they work on that, and it's up to them then to do the sales support, whatever the relationship they set up with you guys.
Yeah.
We're happy to help support, but ultimately we rely on them to ensure success between yourself and the customer.
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, sorry, I've got to drop off. I'm so sorry because I'm about 3 minutes late for another meeting, but thank you so much, James. I'll drop you a note specifically about the deal I spoke about, and we can go from
Awesome, that'd be great.
Cheers, bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Colin.
Okay, so look, Steve, any other questions?
No, look, that's fine. I think that gives us some insight. I think we just need to work through what our current sort of expectations are, I think, with how we sort of move this into the market. As Carleen said, we're obviously getting clients or interest and prospects, with a number of them sort of graduating off of those low-end systems.
Yep.
And I think we just need to put that in perspective, that once they move into something like Intacct or any sort of ERP at whatever level, that, they're not necessarily just getting the poverty pack anymore. And, they're actually sort of moving through into a more sophisticated, feature-rich solution. And with that comes solutions like yourselves that don't just do the bare bones that they offer a lot more value and within the solutions. So I think that's just a journey that we're also just need to make sure that we're cognizant of, because we could easily sort of have a race down to the bottom just to get a cheap outcome, just to fulfill what their already existing expectations.
Yep.
I think you need to sell the value that when you move into a system like Intacct, you're getting a lot more a lot more functionality, workflow, flexibility, reporting, all these sort of things, basically should be part of that, level of expectation. So I think we just need to go through that journey as well. We just, otherwise we might as well just use a receipt bank and just make it cheap and cheerful, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's spot on. But look, we're very keen to move things along with you, and also we're very flexible in the way that we introduce this to the market, because obviously, as I show on screen, if this isn't going to work in Australia, then we'll go, right, well, how is it going to work? Yeah. And where we want to work with you with that as well.
Yeah, and look, as I opened it up and I was kind of transparent with you guys initially, look, there's a tremendous amount of interest. I think that this area kind of has almost become table stakes in Australia. So it's obviously going to be something that's going to be reviewed and hopefully adopted by most, if not all, clients at some point. So I think for us, the challenge would be is just to make sure that we're true to ourselves with what the value is, but also be cognizant of that. How do we get a couple of those early adopters in place, which involves probably a bit more heavy lifting from ourselves and yourselves.
Yep, absolutely.
And then once the VARs get up and running, they become, I think then it sort of changes the dynamic. It's just kind of getting those few references. Carleen mentioned about that site, but in also in transparency to that, she did say around 10,000 a year. Well, part of that is just to get those initial ones across the line, right?
Yeah.
Either they were using a system that was being sunsetted, or we were trying to be very competitive, with those early ones, just to get those sites in play, so that we have them as reference sites and so forth. So, it's that sort of price skimming and sort of.
Oh yeah. We would be flexible in that as well. We know, we understand, and I've done it already in the UK when this product got released in the UK, that we had to really work on skimming it around, trying to get the first few to get those references in, and I think we're more than happy to work on that as well. Yeah,
and look, to be honest with you, we're reviewing our Intacct pricing, here, because we just took the uplift for the exchange rate, and we're now looking at it and just seeing where it fits in the market. So I think when we're in that sort of, we're not a challenger brand quite yet, but I think we're at that stage of just still, coming into market as a new player, and so anyway, cool. I think you're cognizant of that. I just, for me, mate, I'm just so excited, for getting the monetary aspect out, and just to get a few of these sites, onto iCompleat is my goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's my absolute goal too, is to get these initial ones, because we see ourselves very aligned with Sage Intacct as a perfect product to go along with it. We obviously integrate with Xero and stuff like that, but as you said before, because people are used to a bare bones type service with that type of platform, then they go to Receipt Bank and they go to these type of ones where we're hoping that because your feature rich product like Intacct, then they'll want add-ons like us to go along with their system.
So good. No, I think that's good. All right. So I guess Carleen is, that's great. You've got the report. Just send that across, which would be great. I think, I'll circle around back with Carleen just as far as that use case, and see if what we can work through on that. See what we can do. And then we'll just start picking it apart now that we've got this level of detail. And if you can just share, are you able to share the deck as well?
Yep.
Great.
No worries.
Okay. And we'll just let us know, ping us when you have that final integration done.
Yep.
If there's any other questions from the guys, but I think it's good. Appreciate it.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. And yeah, hopefully once we get this integration finalized, we can start moving and getting some potential sites up and running.
Great.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great session. Really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Have a good day.
All right. Speak soon.
Cheers. Bye.